Hello and fuck Cape Shit. Welcome to another episode of Shittywebcomics Weekly, brought to you by our Subscribe Star backers. Check the link below to get access to all of our really great videos that say the stuff that everyone else will be saying in the coming years, as proven by many cases that we could bring up. We've talked about that stuff in the past, though. And more importantly, it helps support us. It helps support the only people telling you the truth when everyone else wants to lie to you. Um,
The
and so,
realist. We're the realist N words on
yes.
the internet.
So if you want to know the truth before anyone else says it or when nobody will say it, donate to our Subscribe Star. But if you don't want to know the truth, don't donate to our Subscribe Star. Um,
If you don't want to know the truth, you don't have to do anything. It's free.
it's free to not want to know
People
the truth. Wow, good
people
job.
will lie to you for free.
Although mostly, in those cases, you end up paying for it in various ways,
Yeah.
usually monetarily as well, too, of course.
Yeah, I
Um,
can't even say it's not for money. But yeah, it's further down the line, which as we all know, means that it's not happening.
which
If it happens, if it's delayed, then that means it's not happening at all, and you can just safely ignore it.
Good job. But this week's episode is kind of about that very thing, in a way. The Somebody sent us a copy of Blade Devil, the Comicsgate comic by Raging Golden Eagle, who is either MGTOW or former MGTOW or whatever. Just straight up leech tuber these days, though. Um, so we figured we would cover it, and my brother was familiar with him because my brother was looking into all the MGTOW and the man. He was, studying it, perhaps you could say, but familiar. I remember, over 10 years ago, you were very familiar with the upcoming MGTOW movement and ideas and
Yeah, I was
philosophy
reading
and
a
that
lot of the
shit.
stuff. Actually, I don't know if we mentioned that last time where we were going to the operator chain.
Yeah, I think we mentioned something about some of that stuff, and yeah,
That's where I kind of discovered a lot of it. That was the first time I ever saw anybody mention stuff like that. It's like, wow, these guys are actually fucking making fun of women. I didn't know that was legal. I was told all my life that if you did that, you would fucking get in trouble for it.
that
These
you're a
guys are
bad
doing this. This
person.
is great.
Well, I remember Operator Chan even had some fucking cam whore who really wanted attention. And she would post
Oh yeah,
nudes and shit, and some guys would just straight up call her out for clearly
which is
wanting
exactly what she
special
was doing.
treatment.
She was getting called out for exactly what she was guilty of. There's
Yeah,
like no two ways about it.
yeah, she wanted special treatment. She wanted preferential treatment. So guys would start ripping on her for that, very deservedly. But then there would be the simps. And the thing is, this was before the word simps and that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Um, White knight was actually the term at the time, and still is and still should be, of course. But a lot of guys were white knighting for her, but they didn't have any real argument. They just liked her and wanted fucking
Yeah,
to
if the argument was like,
worship.
hey, don't chase away the only girl, and it's like, why not? She's not useful. All she's doing is getting attention towards herself by posting pictures of her tits and ass.
And the thing is that she was mid, of course, which I don't have a problem with. It's sort of like the she's mid, but I like her. I didn't have a problem with her existing. The problem is she was using the fact that she was a woman for special treatment, which she
Yeah,
didn't have to do. She didn't
I
even
mean,
have to
hey,
make it publicly known.
five five out of 10 is average, but
Yes.
that for some reason that is also like the worst crime of all.
Yes.
It's a fucking call a woman ugly or call her a one, and it rolls off of her like water off a duck's back. But you call her a mid and see how she
Or
recoils.
just call her mid. She's been found out. Especially if she's like even a 6 or a 7 of anything, or if she's an 8 or a 9 or a 10, you call her mid, and it's just like it's
You might as well have raped her.
it's like a legal form of rape. If rape could be legal, which I mean, you hear it from the feminists these days, and or not even these
As
days,
far
just
as feminists,
for the past
as far as
hundred
feminists are
years,
concerned, it's already illegal.
it's been
So why
legal.
not treat it why not take them at their word and treat it like it already is legal?
Been legal and apparently totally cool, according to feminists. This is what they say. I
This
don't
is
know
what they
about
want.
that personally.
I didn't want it to be this way. They wanted it to be this way.
I didn't want it to be this way. It's a self-defense situation, though. The So yeah, the this week's episode will be covering Blade Devil, the comic by Raging Golden Eagle, who basically simped hard and went full damage control for Comicsgate, even when Comicsgate was caught lying and false flagging, doxing
That's the
people,
thing
that
is,
kind of shit.
he's basically an angry incel, but he's also a simp too. It's just that he's a simp for fucking e-celebs.
He's not even Sniper Monkey or
He's
Mayonnaise on an Escalator.
he's not even mayonnaise on an escalator.
Does
What the
not
fuck?
even rise to that level. But yeah, yeah, it's ironic because he's supposed to be MGTOW men things, manosphere, and then he's within Comicsgate he is completely whoring out for a filthy faggot, self-described filthy faggot in Ethan Van Sciver, and very effeminate, womanly, and feminist SJW behavior. And he doesn't admit to it, and in fact will run and hide, as he has. I'm pretty sure he blocked me at least once, maybe twice in the past. Not even on different accounts. He's blocked me and apparently unblocked me and reblocked me at some point.
I mean, it goes to show that that's very typical for a lot of these people.
Yeah, the MGTOW thing had its own implosion a few years ago. It was about 2018, ironically, which is the thing I'm looking at is The Anti-Feminist, which is an old blog going back many, many, many years. I remember you linking to them and reading them in the past. Also links to Anglo Bitch on the side here, and Hartiste Royce. I remember him. I remember reading and watching some of the videos. Like I would watch Sandman. I used to watch Turd Flinging Monkey, which turned into its own thing, its own disaster in a way. Where he's pretty similar in ways we've covered in previous videos, going back
This is
years.
actually something. This is actually a topic that Stardust very accurately fucking.
Yeah, Stardust, I still kind of like. There's some issues with Stardust, but I still generally like his videos. I don't really watch them much. I'm not subscribed to
He's
him.
more trustworthy. That's the way
Yeah.
I'll put it. Is like it's more sensible to listen to what he has to say. But even he's talking about like there's a lot of these people out there who want to pretend to be gurus, and they don't really give a shit about you. They always just want your money.
Yeah, he did that video recently about that kind of thing. In fact, his channel's called Thinking Ape, isn't it? Or is it called Stardust?
Yeah, his like account name.
Yeah. There was also Barbarossa, I remember him, and a couple others who did good videos, and they kind of quit. They just didn't.
Yeah, that's the thing in particular that I also respect about Barbarossa is he's just like, yeah, I've covered all this stuff. There's nothing.
Yeah.
There's nowhere else to go with this. So what do? Just fucking keep shilling for people's money? I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, I respect that. I can actually respect that.
Yeah, and that was good, that's the part of the MGTOW community, whatever, that I did like, and I still generally like. I never hated Sandman, but he was clearly a guy who wanted to just monetize MGTOW and the idea of it, and Turd Flinging Monkey also, and Raging Golden Eagle just as well. In fact, TFM and Raging Golden Eagle.
With Raging Golden Eagle, I never watched his videos or listened to them because,
No.
it's like
I was familiar with him. I heard of him, but yeah, I never watched any of his videos.
To anyone who says that they're making these claims. The simple fact is, I don't care that much.
Yeah,
as it turns out, I was right not to. My instincts were right on. He was not worth listening to from the beginning.
Yeah, the same with Turd Flinging Monkey is they were really just repeating what the other people had told the stories about, and that was that used to be interesting back then because no one else was doing YouTube videos. It was just a few people were doing YouTube videos where they even talked about this kind of thing. And so all you had to do was be one of the people who talked about it. But there's a lot more to that. We've covered that in previous videos. What we're going to do is just we'll start with covering the actual comic. Right off the bat, the first page in the PDF, which was 167 pages. And you read, how many pages of this did you read?
I'd say 15.
Yeah, I figured I would read either the whole thing or at least more of it. I was going to be the one who went over the whole thing, so I had all the context.
You're going to do this like a professional reviewer or something.
Yeah, and here's the thing, though. As we've established, there are things that comics kind of need to do in the first page, the first 5 pages, and the first 10 pages. And if they don't do them, they're not worth reading. It's sort of like the food critic in Ratatouille, where the chef guy was, the young plucky chef was like, "Oh, you're pretty skinny for a food critic," and the guy responds by saying, "If I don't like the food, I don't swallow." And it's like, well, shit, this guy's he's a little hardcore. He's got some intense energy, but that's kind of how it should be. It's not enough like that in comics. For comics, people don't do that, and they should.
That tends to be how you fucking react to something that doesn't meet those standards.
Or any that's the thing, is that with comics, in the comics community, in the medium in America, people don't really have any standards. The standard in America is, oh, this wasn't actively repulsive to look at every single page or every panel, so I guess it was okay. A 5 out of 10. Or a fucking... It's the video game journalist rating scale.
Richard would do with his, whenever he'd review another horrible fucking piece of shit from Marvel. It's like, oh, it didn't actively fucking attack men, it wasn't spreading anti-male blood libel. So this is a great comic, and you should all buy it to move the needle, improve the needle.
That was your boy Zach, who, again, nobody else properly identified him as being a cuck except for us. And we were proven right about that, as usual, of course, as we always are.
We're the first, and we're still the best.
Yes. But if a comic didn't slander men on every page, he would recommend it, even if it was by Mark Waid, as he was suing Mark Waid. He was suing Mark Waid for trying to get him banned out of comics or whatever, and Mark Waid was definitely throwing sissy fits about ya boy Zach, ya cuck Zach Richard C. Meyer. His name is Richard. It's not Zach.
I don't care if he was suing him or not. Mark Waid's comics are fucking terrible all the time. And the reason why he was praising them, and everyone was like, oh, maybe he's just being objective. No, it's Mark Waid. He's terrible.
Yeah, Mark Waid isn't good. In fact, the supposedly good Mark Waid comic, Kingdom Come, for DC, I read it, and it's not that good. Again, it's one of those where it's like, no, it's not terrible, but to be honest, I didn't like the art. It's that Alex Ross, I think, that painterly art where he paints the superheroes as looking very realistic, and when it looks too realistic, it starts to just look really stupid and gay to me. That's my personal opinion about that, though.
It starts to look like a really shitty tracing, because it's not realistic. It's just an attempt to look realistic.
There is some element of stylization to it, but
ugly as a result of that.
Yeah, I personally, that's how I feel about it. That's my opinion, is that the style of the art in Kingdom Come, I didn't like it. I didn't think it was good, but that didn't ruin the comic for me. What did ruin the comic for me was that it was just the usual, typical kind of stupid. It was like high concept, but it was still the stupid superhero, cape shit where the villains are cartoonishly one-dimensional, mustache twirling, fucking, it just dumb. It's cheesy. It's silly. It's
do the superheroes show up to a funeral in their costumes in that one?
I forget, but that seems to happen in all of the important cape shit books. That always happens at least once.
Yeah. It might as well. They might as well have done that.
I don't think it did, but yeah, it might as well have.
It's on that level where they might as well have done that, and it always looks like shit.
Yeah, so anyways, like I was saying though about the standards for the entire medium is that most people will say, you have to read the entire if it's 100 pages, you got to read 100 pages. If it's 500 pages, you got to read 500 pages, or else you can't judge the book. That's not true though. You can judge a book, an entire book, just by reading at least the first 10 pages. If you're genius tier like we are, you can usually judge it by the first page, sometimes by the cover. You're not supposed to judge it by the cover. The first page, though, and the cover in this case for the PDF, very worth judging it by because, as you can see, it's smooshed off to the side because whoever did the PDF here had all the pages, but usually right away this clued me in that there's going to be one really wide page, usually a double page spread. And most double page spreads, or all double page spreads in all comic books, in American comic books, are completely pointless and serve no purpose. And that was my assumption, anyways. And eventually I get to the double page spread, and we'll get to that later in the review. And sure enough, it did prove me right. I guess that's kind of a spoiler for the review.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when something is predictable, when you predict something that's extremely predictable and you end up being right, is it even really worth?
Yeah.
It's not even
Do
worth
you have
bragging
to?
about.
Yeah. Do you really have to read anymore when you've correctly guessed something just by mocking it, and you end up being proven right? You really don't need to read any more of it. So yeah, the cover here smooshed off to the side in the PDF form. There are ways to fix this. They clearly didn't. And I know some PDF viewers may display this differently, but the PDF viewer I use in Brave, which is a nice one, it's certainly nice. It does have this smooshed off to the side, so you have to drag it over. And then when you do get to the double page spread, then you either have to zoom it out or go back and forth. And it's just, again, it's easier when everything's just single pages when you're reading a comic in a PDF. Now, if you're designing the book to be in print, that's fine, because you're reading the PDF, you say to yourself, well, I guess I have to make concessions for the book because this isn't the delivery method or the form of the medium that it was meant for. But still, it's like there's just better ways to do it. Still, though, getting off into it, that's the cover, and then the first page is like some concept art, which is a bizarre place to put your filler, because if you're going to have any concept art, why you put it in the beginning, I have no clue, but you're essentially wasting time until you get to the story.
It shows that you don't care about who's reading. You don't really want to make a comic to begin with. But you also especially don't care who's reading.
Yeah, it's an indicator that the story is not as important as showing the visuals. And when you're reading a comic,
loading it up. This is also again what fucking Cyberfrog did. It was just basically just a boatload of fucking wasted space. Like he's counting a blank page that just says the chapter number as one of the pages of his comic.
Yeah. But he still at least put the concept art and filler pages. It was about 20 pages of filler, but he at least put them at the end instead of front loading it at the beginning. What you really need to do when you're making comic is the first page should be the beginning of your story, and the first page should also follow the page one rule. Is you need to establish as many things as possible, but the protagonist, the setting. Usually, you should be able to establish the theme and the antagonist, or at least the main obstacle, or the goal, or what's preventing the main character from.
Hey, I did a comic. I've got a comic I'm making right now. I've done that. I've done all those things, and I didn't even think that I needed to.
Yeah,
it was just like, why would somebody want to read my comic unless I make sure to do some of this?
Yeah, to show why the reader should be interested. And if you just start off with the way a lot of people do it. And I'll say one thing in this comic's favor is that this didn't, Blade Devil does not do this, but a lot of comics, especially by Comicsgate, start by doing the one thing that they shouldn't do. The biggest blunder in American comics in general that you can tell the comic is written by somebody who has no clue what they're doing is the first page is a splash page that just has a ton of narration captions. And it's just and usually it's just somebody standing there, usually the hero. And that's not even a good introduction to the hero because we don't usually know what the hero wants there. It's just some attempt at world building that's like, in this world, the bad guy is evil and he wants to do evil things because he's bad. You know, it's usually something like that. In this one, it starts off with the main protagonist apparently murdering a guy, though. So we'll get into that here.
That's already. There's another thing. If I'm gonna let's put our pros at the front of this too. Here's another pro. The comic actually came out. Wow, a Comicsgate comic that actually got made. As much as I will trash Comicsgate for fucking not wanting to make comics, and so they don't make comics, this one at least got made.
And that's it is a decent size.
And 90% of comics, that's another thing, is like, wow, it's not 40 pages.
Yeah.
Normally, when Comicsgate is like, yeah, this is going to be the biggest thing ever, it's like 40, it's like nothing. It's now, like they could not be bothered to make a comic.
This comic was late, though, but considering the length, usually that just speaks to some of those neophyte problems of it's somebody's first comic, they made it too long without knowing why.
That very much comes across. This comes across like somebody who's not only never made a comic, but probably never written anything.
Yeah, but also didn't have any standards for themselves. Like you don't have to be a good comic creator to know that if you're making your first book, first of all, your first ever comic shouldn't be your first book or something like that. You should make your first comic something. Well, we've gone into this many times on the old Shitty webcomic before we even did videos, going back to the original blog. We had a lot of really excellent advice. That was your first comic basically shouldn't be published. Your first comic should be made for yourself that you show to friends, and you sort of get the experience of your first comic out and finished. You should expect
your first comic to be your very worst thing.
Yeah, and in fact,
whatever it is that you make is going to be the worst thing that you will have made.
Yeah, going into that, knowing that ahead of time usually frees you up to make something fun or ridiculous. You're like, well, this is going to be my worst thing anyways, so I'll just, I can make it stupid. I don't have to have a standard. And that's a good way to not have a standard and get a positive outcome from it, is you get the experience of at least making the comic and sort of understanding what you want to do. And you get a better understanding of the other things you want to do in comics and in the other comics you want to make by sort of making your first comic a throwaway with possibly no standards, or at least making it intentionally silly or bizarre or something like that.
It's an important part of the fucking learning process. There's nothing wrong with learning. You should always be learning. But there is a problem when you can't admit that you are still learning.
Yeah, and your learning process shouldn't be your a big crowdfunding campaign, because as we've seen with many Comicsgate comics, even from people who have industry experience or are supposed to have experience, they have a big crowdfunding campaign, then they release their comic and it's dog shit because they didn't really know what they were doing.
And they also think that if they had a big crowdfunding campaign, that automatically means whatever they made is good.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people who don't understand quality or standards will say, in fact, that's the mark of a dishonest and disingenuous person is they will say something is popular, therefore it's good. It's actually the good way. It's a very good way to spot the red flag for
But
a liar.
they will also complain about other people doing that.
Yeah,
Like they don't even see how they're being how they're contradicting
yeah,
themselves.
with zero self awareness. We've seen that in a lot of other people. Within Comicscape, but also just in general throughout
Well,
society
also
for
this
decades now.
this comic right here, exact same thing. It made a bunch of money, therefore he's right and it's good. You're wrong if you don't like it.
I
You're a
will say
retard.
at least that the art is passable. The problem, as always with comics, is the art, is just there. It's the window dressing. It's the presentation. Um,
I don't like it. That's another thing I have to say up front. So nobody's confused. Just so we're clear, this art is really not that good.
it's not great, and it's the problem with the art. The art is serviceable and it works, and it's not terrible. The problem with the art is that it's that sort of early to mid 2000s era of Westerners trying to ape the anime style that, like, sort of like you'd see in the Marvel manga verse from those old, just the weird, um, very inaccurate, like clearly by an artist who is trained in the American style of superhero comics. This art not quite so much, but it has huge shades of that, where it's clearly a Western artist trying to imitate the anime style and not really pulling it off. Um, the Marvel stuff, I think, came off way worse back in the day, but
Yeah,
either these
congratulations.
days either just make it anime, but you have the artist be an actual anime artist who is used to drawing in that way, or make it so that they draw the way they're supposed to draw, or whatever it is. This sort of bizarre in between is it turns into goofy, wall-eyed, cross-eyed, fucking noseless animu freaks. Sort of like Howard the Duck, where it's a clash of styles, except that was intentional. Or Cerebus is another good example of the intentional clash of styles, where it's like cartoon animal in a world with just realistic humans, and it's supposed to be a bizarre mismatch.
I mean, he can actually draw. He
Yeah,
fucking Dave Sim is actually capable of drawing.
yeah.
That's
Whatever
the point.
whatever you want to say about Dave Sim, he is capable of drawing. But yeah, when you have that mismatch of the Western style and the anime style, it just turns into Uncanny Valley for the most part. And this comic doesn't really have that much of a problem, but it is there. Um, but anyways, yeah, the comic starts in medias res, of course, with the heroine apparently murdering a guy with her weird disease powers of some kind, which is inherently confusing. But I think the point of that is to get the reader to say, "Oh, what's going on here? I will discover the mystery." And then the problem is that a lot of the rest of the next several pages are nonstop narration captions between two unseen characters that apparently embody this main character who she's not talking, but apparently two possible creatures or non-corporeal something d somethings are bickering endlessly, and it's not funny and it's not interesting, and it's a lot of filler, and it doesn't really fill in much. It's sort of like your eye, the reader's eyes naturally start to glaze over, and it's like, do I care about bickering non-corporeal
Yeah,
characters who aren't funny or
the
interesting?
simple fact is like, what are you doing? This is from me, the perspective of the reader, and it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing to pull me in to your story? And the answer is, you're not allowed
Yeah.
to even do that.
What are you doing with my time? Why are you wasting my two precious hours with your movie? Something
He'll
like
hate
that.
you if you fucking even say that.
Yeah, that's
But
the thing
no,
is that
you have
these
to
creators
come
get very pissed
to
off.
my story liking it already.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah, that's another thing
Get
that
fucked.
people, the creators of comics, don't understand is that they're used to people showing up already praising them sight unseen with no merit and no deserving. They're like, "Hey, I have this industry cred. I worked for the corrupt big two. Therefore, you have to like what I make already." And if anyone goes no, they
I'm
get
only the
really
lid.
pissed off and start doing damage control videos. We've seen that in the past. In
Yeah,
fact, we've seen that in the
that's the
present.
thing. I never would have imagined anyone would be that fucking childish or stupid,
Yeah,
but
or
Raging
thin
Golden
skinned,
Eagle
but
absolutely is.
the most thin skinned people on the planet in history have always been American comic book fans. There have been comics about that, making fun of that. The comic book guy character from The Simpsons is about that very thing.
Yeah, Raging Golden Eagle is basically that guy.
Yeah, he's just another example in this case. And the thing is, there's also, a lot of other circumstances and situations about the behavior and that kind of thing. We've covered that in a lot of previous videos. Again, if you want to check that out, go to our subscribe star. It has all that information. All the videos we had about that used to be public, but again, Comicsgate false. In fact, it was Raging Golden Eagle's friend who false flagged our previous channel. And it's that friend, Liam Gray, is now being bullied by Comicsgate, by Ethan Van Sciver and John Delarose, into suicide. They're trying to get Liam Gray to commit suicide so that the evidence of their direct involvement and collusion and corruption in encouraging and actually, in Ethan's case, paying Liam Gray to false flag our channel, among other channels.
Yeah, direct support.
Yeah, he wants that evidence
These are the
gone, and the
friends.
best way for him to do that is to get Liam Gray to commit
If
suicide.
if you have friends in Comicsgate, this is what your friends in Comicsgate want to do to their friends.
And it's very important to point out that Liam Gray himself, after the false flagging, said that one of the only people who stuck up for him and supported him false flagging people was Raging Golden Eagle. That's very important to point out, and it's something that you don't see anyone else admit to, even though it's true and, in fact, has been archived and backed up and is fully
That's the best
evident.
part is he was supporting him, and now fucking now it's gone. Now it's over already. So it goes to show how
Yeah,
good
how'd
of
that turn
friends
out?
they are still.
Yeah, I
And
don't know how that
eventually,
friendship is
this
working out.
happens to all of them ultimately.
Yeah, sooner or later. But anyways, so that sort of wraps up this introduction to our review of Blade Devil. The rest of our review of Blade Devil will be on our subscribe star. So go ahead, hit the link below, like, share, comment, subscribe, unsubscribe,
Make sure you're still
resubscribe.
unsubscribed.
Yes. But give us money on Subscribe Star. Become an official Shitty Webcomics pay pig. And you'll be able to watch the rest of the review. And for everyone else, though, should have listened to Shitty Webcomics.